All right, so you want to buy a private jet, or you want to learn about the process of buying a private jet. Do I need a broker? What are the pitfalls? If you're qualified and you actually want to buy a private jet or a charter, jet card, fractional, whatever, you're probably not even going to watch this video. You're legitimately going to just click the description, go down, find my email, maybe go to my website. Watch out for this wing here, Sloan. I'm saving my videographer's life right now. And you're gonna book a 15-minute call with me. But in this video, I'm gonna lay out from A to Z exactly how a deal goes. In fact, we're showing this bird in about 45 minutes. So I'll lay out that deal structure with a little B-roll, Sloan. Throw some B-roll. It can't just be at me. Okay, you gotta show the plane. But we're gonna go back and I'm gonna lay out exactly how buying and selling a private jet works. So if you're ready, let's go. All right, so this is kind of a different showing. Normally, you're on the plane for 15 minutes and that's it. The original baller walks up with his Jordans on. We have a conversation, 45 minutes long. We don't talk about anything but like racing and watches. And then his team comes and I'm sitting with his CFO. He already bugged out. He was like, all right, I'm gone. But I sat with the CFO and the conversation was very different. Hey, how much income are you trying to write off this year? They're trying to offset about $40 million of income. So it looks like this is gonna be a 2-plane deal, which is great. But again, we're sitting here in November, like, time's of the essence. They're looking at multifamily deals, they're looking at moving money around in different ways. For me, it's aviation. We talked financing terms, we talked lease structure, we talked personal usage and hourly costs. Like, I cannot tell you how much different of a conversation that was, but again, like, in private aviation, you never know who's gonna show up, what kind of conversation. You gotta be a real chameleon. So you've gotta be able to talk the talk with the ballers, and then you've gotta be able to crunch numbers with the counters. So that's how it goes. We're gonna film exactly how a deal happens in private aviation, how you buy and sell a jet. Yada. All right, that was a very chaotic intro, I know. Also, different day. We did not have time. We are now in the office. I think these horizontals actually add 10 pounds, so give me a little grace here. You wanna learn how to actually buy and sell a private jet. So for those qualified, you're gonna reach out to me and we're gonna talk through it. You actually wanna learn about it, let's do that here. Now, before we get into this super juicy contract negotiation, high stakes, we need to look at, is buying a jet right for you? Here's the deal. There's basically a pre-LOI and a post-LOI stage. LOI is a letter of intent. That would be a letter of intent to purchase an aircraft. So it's OTP, offer to purchase. Before we even make offers, we have a number of things that we have to do. The first thing that we have to do is basically define your mission. It may not be right for you to buy a jet. At about $2 million of annual income or $20 million of net worth, that's about when guys start to buy. So that's a good litmus test for you. I actually have something called Jade, which is my AI software system that we built that determines maybe you should just be a charter guy. Charter, jet card, fractional, whole ownership. I look at the entire ecosystem. I audit all of your preferences. We're gonna do a separate video about this, which is gonna be really cool. We are in the beta right now of launching that, but I'm gonna move forward. Let's just assume, okay, that we determine you're actually ready to buy the jet. You need a write-off, you fly more than 150 annual hours, you have very strict preferences, whatever it is, you're gonna be buying the jet. What we have to do here is we're gonna build the budget, and the budget is not only going to be for the acquisition, like what you can afford, but it's gonna be for the operating costs too. Because when you buy a jet, it's like buying a horse, okay? You can't just throw it into a hangar. It's a living, breathing thing, and it has some serious financial implications that you're gonna be on the hook for. So we don't need to sink the ship just because you can afford the down payment or pay the thing in cash. You're gonna be operating the bird. It could cost $1, $2, $3 million depending on how often you're flying, where you're going, where you're based, what size jet you buy to actually operate the thing. So let's be careful. That's pitfall number one. Now, in this, there's a little subcategory here, which is, are we financing or are we paying cash? Because after that, what we need to do is we are going to build the team. The team is very interesting, and for different people, it could be a different collaboration of players, okay? You basically here have your broker. Now, you don't need a broker to buy and sell a jet. I am not a licensed aircraft broker like a real estate agent. A bunch of people ask me that, like, do you have to have like your real estate license or something to be a broker? No, you don't. It's wild. It's the Wild West. If you have a good broker, they are worth their weight in gold. I know I am incentivized to say that. I'm a broker for the people. Some people don't use brokers. Not a good idea, but you can do it. Okay, so this is your quarterback. Your broker's your quarterback. He or she need to be able to run the whole thing. Sometimes you might have a chief pilot. So we've got a pilot or a DOA, which is a director of aviation. This is the guy that you know is gonna be flying you. I work very, very well with pilots, getting them involved in the entire process. That's great. The next thing that we need to have, potentially, you don't have to have this, is an aviation attorney or your own attorney. If you use your own general counsel or your own attorney, I can absolutely have, they normally come to me with questions. Then we have a CPA. This can be your CPA. I highly recommend, out of all of the players, this might be the biggest person if there are write-off implications. It's gonna be an aviation tax advisor. I have one that I recommend. Every broker has their favorite aviation tax advisor. Mine's Danny Chung. Danny, what's up, man? Let's play some golf in Scottsdale. If you are financing, we have a lender. If you have a banking relationship that you already like, then we can just use your bank. You know, there's a knife fight for depository relationships, especially right now. So if you're ultra high net worth, your bank is probably going to try to give you aviation financing because it's one of the biggest assets. They get to keep their relationship with you. I obviously know a ton of bankers that do financing, or you could go to a guy like Preston Holland who has relationships with 40 or 50 different bankers, and he can place you as kind of like the lending tree of aviation financing, for example. And I've got other guys, Robinette, and you know. And then this one might be big here. This is your management company. When you buy this bird, you are going to have someone that is stewarding your asset. You're going to be flying it all the time, Part 91. And you never let it be chartered, then we have a management company that's just Part 91. But sometimes if you fly it, or maybe you're buying it just for the write-off and you're never gonna use it, it still needs to be revenue generating, kind of like an Airbnb, for example, because it still needs to get exercised, but you don't wanna foot all the bill. Well, it can make money for you on a charter certificate to offset your costs. So you've got the management company, and then the very last party, and there are exceptions to this rule. So you could have a director of maintenance come in as your technical advisor. So there are other parties, but this is kind of your foundation group. It's going to be your escrow, and they're sort of the last part of the team. We have assembled your dream team here. Next, we've defined you're ready for a bird. Did that through Jade. We established what your budget is for the acquisition and the operating. Are we doing financing or are we paying cash? And before we do this, we probably want to find a management company that is going to be correct for the aircraft that we want to buy for you. So you might be a guy that buys a piston, a turboprop, or a jet, what size jet, etc. And these two need to have a symbiotic relationship, because if you have, you know, a management company that only flies Gulfstreams and you buy a Cirrus, we probably don't need to give that management company the Cirrus, you know what I mean? What we do is we do an aircraft assessment. So I say, okay, wow, you're probably a super mid guy based on the fact that you live in Dallas, you got a house in Aspen, you go to the East Coast, you want to go direct. Oh, sweet, you're between a Challenger 300 and a G280, for example. And so we have the type of aircraft that we're going to purchase. Now we look at the market. Now this is when it starts getting, well, it's already fun. I actually really like the aircraft assessment, because that's when you're like showing guys, hey, this is what you're looking at. You send them examples like, ooh, I like that. Can we redo the interior? Or we're walking through a whole bunch of stuff there. Now we start looking at the market. I mean, there are a bunch of competitive advantages of using a broker, but when we start looking at the market, brokers specifically who are worth their weight in gold, this is a huge value driver for why you should use a broker. Because for example, let's say if we narrow down the fact that you're gonna be buying a Challenger 300, for example, your budget fits everything. You go on controller.com or you go on any other publicly available website and you're gonna see 15 Challenger 300s, you're gonna start calling them. Well, it's more than likely that brokers, if they're good, like for our internal stuff, for example, we will call every single serial number of every single Challenger 300 ever manufactured. And we will call them and we say, hi sir, I know your aircraft is not for sale, but we have an active acquisition client for a Challenger 300. Can we make you an offer? Are you ready to sell? So we shake the bushes. Just from the get-go, you might have 15 Challenger 300s that are for sale, but we know of, out of the gate with our brokerage MLS software, we know of 28 of them. So you're leaving 13 potential buys on the table because we're in the trenches. We know what's available. We know what's coming. We know what deals just fell through. And then we have initial valuation. So let's say we find what you're looking for, a 2010 Challenger 300 or that sort of window. Whatever your preferences are that we built in your assessment, we go ahead and find, and then we make a strategy on how we're gonna place the LOI. And then, at long last, making an offer. Finally, you have an LOI. We have an LOI that we use. This is a non-legally binding document, and we can finally move over. There's a bit more action, a bit less planning. Everything's sort of laid out. The cement's wet. We can start framing, okay? We have the foundation of the house. Once we've made the LOI, we go into post-LOI. You can put a refundable deposit pre-LOI. Or if you're paying cash and it's not in a high yield account, then you can go ahead and put the entire amount into escrow. I don't care. If I have a fully funded escrow account before we even make an offer, that puts us in a super, super strong position to negotiate because there's no financing contingencies. We have proof of funds. They know you're not playing around. But normally your deposit is going to be about 10% of the purchase price of the aircraft. $10 million bird, $500,000, $1 million is a pretty good deposit. This is refundable at any point until technical acceptance, which is going to be, I don't know, somewhere in this category down here. You can pull this money out at any time. So you're just putting a deposit in a third party proof of funds. People know you're legit, and that this helps our negotiation. So they know, all right, this guy's serious. At the same time, this is where we start running like parallel in tandem stuff. So what I want to do is set up your entity. This could be, depending on what your CPA says or your attorney says and your strategy, this could be a Bank of Utah trust. This could be a Delaware LLC. This could be a Texas LLC. It just depends on where you are and what we're going to be doing with the aircraft. I want to go ahead and put that entity because the next step after the LOI is to have the APA, baby. This is the aircraft purchase agreement. This is a legally binding document. So this is the contract that your attorney's probably gonna look at. I'm for sure gonna look at it. And this is where you're gonna see red lines. So this is where we play contract tennis. This is the true negotiation. This is where we talk about locking in where the PPI is, the pre-purchase inspection, and what the scope of that pre-purchase inspection is going to be. The delivery flight, the closing state or the closing country, if you're importing or exporting a bird, this is all going to be negotiated in the APA. Other big things are going to be your timeline. And this is why I say, hey, we need to go ahead and set up entities, because the entity that is going to be buying the aircraft needs to be listed in the aircraft purchase agreement. The aircraft purchase agreement we send to escrow. So they have the documentation, they can see the purchase price, all of that thing. You know, if expectations are managed super well, maybe you have one set of red lines. It's unrealistic not to have any red lines once you really get into the T's and C's. All right, now it's getting juicy. We are in a pre-purchase inspection. This is normally done. There are varying levels of pre-purchase inspection, which is like very, very, very involved, very invasive, very thorough, or visual inspection, logbook review. So your physical documentation, making sure everything's legit. Like, oh, wait a second, we don't have 10 years of documents when the aircraft was in Germany. So, that's a problem. After the PPI, basically, when the inspection facility is completely done, you have a squawk list. So now we're gonna negotiate the squawks. You had a scope of what the PPI was going to entail, and from that scope, we're gonna check pressurization, we're gonna do a window prism check, all of the things that we're gonna do. Now they come up with a squawk list. And normally, and this is where I might get in trouble, but a pre-purchase inspection of the MRO is going to say, the maintenance facility is gonna say, okay, here are all the squawks that we found, and they flag everything. You're like, Jiminy Christmas, you ripped my plane completely apart. Well, not all of them need to be addressed. They'll notice like, oh, there was a Sharpie on the sidewall or on the, when it's like, that's not airworthy, guys. So you have two designations of squawks, and this is big. Again, we're in the weeds. So if you're still watching this video, you're a serious nerd, and I love you. Stick around, okay? So you have airworthy and you have non-airworthy. Typically, in the APA, a seller will pay for airworthiness squawks. Does it ground the aircraft or not? And a buyer will pay for non-airworthiness. That's kind of a big gotcha, because guys are like, I want it absolutely perfect. I'm like, sorry, chief. Like, that's not what we sign in the APA. Structure the contract however you want, but a seller with a 1997 G4SP is not delivering you a factory new aircraft. So we need to set realistic expectations. We have a squawk list, and then we got two more things. Technical acceptance. My handwriting is getting worse. Here's the deal. Remember that deposit I told you about? This is where, when you sign technical acceptance of the aircraft, this deposit goes hard. If the seller agrees to fix the airworthiness squawks and they've delivered an aircraft in accordance with the terms set out in the purchase agreement, you're not backing out of that deal. If you do, you lose your deposit. We have technically accepted the aircraft. They downed their aircraft for 4 to 8 weeks in a pre-purchase inspection. They couldn't make charter revenue. You've wasted a lot of people's time if all of a sudden they have done everything that they agreed to in that purchase agreement and you back away. So you could potentially lose your deposit here. That's typically, aircraft brokers in the chat, help me out here, but that's typically how these things go. After we have technical acceptance, you're excited about your new plane, we have closing and delivery. Help me out, this is Nerdville, okay? If we are closing on an aircraft, you have a Texas LLC, and you did the pre-purchase inspection on your Phenom 100 at Clara Aviation with Chris Grinnell, my boy. You better not close on that bird in Texas, because if you're spending $2 million on a bird, I don't know if you want to pay sales tax. And this is big, this is helpful. But what we do with the delivery is that we fly to what's called a fly away state. This is for, obviously, United States to United States entities. A flyaway state is a state that does not have sales tax. So this is a flyaway state, for example, could be Oregon, Kansas, North Carolina. Someone fact check me, okay? You guys know, like, if you've been following any of my social media stuff, I hired a marketing team and I told them I won't do boring. I can't do boring, okay? But I tried to have a cohesive argument here. I'm trying to pull back the curtain and be a broker for the people and show you how the private jet world works. At closing, your escrow agent is gonna take all the money from the buyer that's been funded either by you completely or from your lender, and they are going to close. They're gonna file with the FAA. They're all in Oklahoma City, right across the street. And they file, they change title. You now own the aircraft, and they simultaneously release the funds to the seller. Congratulations, you own a private jet. You're officially a baller, and we're going to Bandon. You tell me when, I'll make it happen. We'll get a foursome, we'll go on your jet, we'll take off and have some serious fun. If you have any questions, did I miss something? Please let me know. I'll get back to you in 5 to 7 business days. I'm just kidding. I don't know why that came to mind. Seriously, if you watch this whole video, congrats. Thank you. Like, subscribe, comment. What do I say? And honestly, if you're serious, you probably only watched the first 10 seconds of this video, and you probably have already emailed me. So we'll see you in the next video. Still don't know how to sign off on these things, but I love you guys. Yada.